45 minutes then of TEGIWA Roadsports Series racing gets underway as the lights go out, and Rob Baker on the inside line. Is he going to be able to hold off Anglesey? Goes right round the outside in the Ginetta G20, and the G20 tries to nose ahead as the rest of the field still flowing across the line. Such is the size of the grid, but it is the Ginetta of Lively that leads. Baker is there in second. Will Beach his car with Mark Grice, I think, starting. The Sayat is alongside Luke Handley, but Luke Handley's got the inside line, and it's still side by side for the lead because Rob Baker squeezes up the inside of Alec Lively, who's all over the curb in the Ginetta, which looks tiny, Johnny Palmer, next to the Volkswagen Golf.
Yeah, the roofline of a Golf, much higher, isn't it? You wouldn't necessarily have thought that compared to SUVs and other things on the road, but when you're up against a purebred racing car in the Ginetta G20, very different driving perspectives, you have to think, and two massively large lurching touring cars now next in the sequence. Luke Handley, who's got the jump on Mark Grice's Seat Cupra, the Dayglow yellow and grey colours, all cars of different shapes and sizes working their way through Peel, and you can tell from the quick wiggle there of the Ginetta G40 of Chris Webster, tyre temperature still very much inching its way to within the operating window. But great fight for the first few corners of this opening lap. Now, though, Rob Baker's starting to establish a lead early on in this three-quarter of an hour race.
Alec Livesey's lost a couple of positions there in his G20, which he shares with Adam Bessel, who was so quick in the Club Enduro race last time out at Croft. A lot of these cars will be doing both races, particularly those at the front of the field, almost using this as sort of a simulation for the longer race tomorrow. There you can see Livesey under pressure from the Audi TT, the TDI car of Ryan Parkin, who missed last time out. He had some different drivers in that car, but he's out in his TT today, and he's got the BMW M3 there just behind, the older car driven by Chris Mills. You've got a diesel Golf there just behind. That's the second of the dark side cars. That is for Ryan's twin brother, Scott Parkin, who's out in that one. The Audi, they're all over the curb coming out of Church Corner, but a very good first lap of this race for Rob Baker, who's pulled a 2-second gap over his teammate Luke Handley in these Area Motorsport developed Volkswagen Golfs. And then the Sayat factory-built Cupra is there in third position, driven by Mark Grice to start this one. And here's that battle for second place, Johnny, between the Golf and the Sayat.
Yeah, so Golf under pressure, and possibly from two Sayats. There's the other one with the tartan nose, and that is Colin Gillespie, number 151. So this developing nicely for third, fourth and fifth places. It's two abreast further back with the Ginetta that started, remember, dicing for the race lead. Briefly held the race lead with Livesey at the wheel. Now under pressure from Ryan Parkin's Audi TT to the outside line at the hairpin. That line is not going to work. In fact, it's likely to lose Mark Grice a position. Not quite. Colin Gillespie wasn't close enough to pounce, but as you attack in one movement, you very quickly need to go into defensive mode in the early stages of a race where these cars look very even, unless you're Rob Baker, it seems.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. He's getting away, the three-time Club Enduro champion, with his co-driver Cole Swift. There is Grice, who had that error, didn't he, earlier on. The Audi TT in the background. Ryan Parkin was trying to go around the outside of Alec Livesey, but run very, very wide at turn one. Will Stacey, by the way, from the pit lane, was up to 23rd at the end of the first lap of this 32-car grid. And we've got a car off at the final corner as well. That's the Mazda MX-5 of Alex Richardson, who should be able to get back going. But 2.8 seconds is the lead gap for Baker, who's on a 1 minute 36.9. It's very warm out there now, and the cars are, of course, full of fuel, so the lap times are a bit slower than they were in qualifying this morning when we're in the 1 minute 35s. But there's that battle for second, third and fourth between Handley, Grice and Gillespie, with Luke Handley then in second place. He was the Class B champion in Club Enduro last year. He's upgraded his car to this Class A specification car, so more power, bigger turbocharger basically on that car. But here's the battle for fifth, and it's still Alec Livesey just ahead of Ryan Parkin in the diesel Audi there that tries to come down the inside. That's the Dark Side Developments prepared car, who are diesel engine specialists, so hence why they've got that engine in the Audi TT. But he's still there in sixth. And again, Johnny, after the mistake a lap ago, Mark Grice putting the pressure back on for second place.
Yeah, he's found his rhythm again, hasn't he, after outbraking himself into the banking 2.1 miles ago, and managing to shake just briefly Colin Gillespie as a distraction. Totally together though between the Audi and the Ginetta again into bus stop, and Alec lives in a little choice but to run out wide, and that will give Parkin the opportunity, the slingshot out of bus stop into turn one for the TT to slot ahead, and I think just about get the position. Meanwhile, the Golf versus the Seat still very much in the reckoning.
Yeah, Mark Grice was all over the back of Luke Handley as they went into the banking, couldn't get through. Now they're through Church Corner. So you've got the Area Motorsport Golf ahead of the Capture Motorsport Seat. They're pretty evenly paced as they accelerate uphill towards the Rocket Corner. Is the Seat going to be able to challenge? Not at this stage. So the difference we've got here is the sort of privately prepared Golf from a road car to a racing car by Area Motorsport, and then the fully factory-built Seat behind of Will Beach. It's great to have that variety, isn't it, in a series like this, Johnny?
Totally, and you then have to think, well, factory, that would be the advantage, but to be honest, it's not a lot between the two different preparation versions, if you like, and great that the two Seats now can really take the fight to the Golf, because as Handley and Grice fight amongst themselves, they're not going as quickly as possible, as demonstrated perfectly there by Handley, who was going to go into the hairpin, kind of occupying the middle of the road, and then quickly jump to the inside line. These are not ideal racing lines, hence the reason why Gillespie is able to find a good chunk of time on this particular lap. They are able to extend away though from Ryan Parkin's Audi TT, which is starting to become slightly lonely in 5th position. Ginetta tucked in behind as well, as they're the three, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, through shot and through turn number 1, still in the same order.
Behind all this, Will Stacey in the Lotus Elise that comes across the line now has set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:35.3. He's about 2 seconds quicker than the race leaders, is Will Stacey in that Rob Boston Racing run Lotus Elise that's out up into 11th position, that started from the pit lane. So car number 49, which was a late entry into this race. Will only got here at lunchtime. There he is. He had to do his laps to qualify for this race out of session, but he is absolutely flying in the Lotus there. Johnny, it's about of a 2nd place, carries on as well.
Yeah, that was Grice trying to nibble up the inside into Rocket to get ahead of Luke Handley. Wasn't going to work there, and the more that Grice attacks, the more that Colin Gillespie thinks, well, you go one side, I'll go the other, and potentially take both of you at the same time. Colin Gillespie needing to be a little bit cautious though. There are 2 names on that car, but he's doing the solo drive this weekend. Yes. There is a longer race to come tomorrow though, where that may change, but there's only one name alongside the 151 Seat, at least in my programme.
Yeah, he'll be joined by ex-British GT driver Phil Dryborough tomorrow.
Cool,
but,
okay.
But Colin Gillespie goes solo in the car he owns during the shorter race, the Roadsports series. Now for 2nd place has Mark Grice got alongside Luke Handley here to take 2nd position into the final corner. He brakes late and slices up the inside. All these front-wheel drive cars at the front. Does he slide a little bit too wide? Not too bad. So he's up into 2nd place now, is Mark Grice. But he knows he needs to get on with it because he was the winner at Croft. He's got the biggest success penalty of all in this front group. He's now 7 seconds behind the race leader, though, Rob Baker, who's really made the most, Johnny, of having that good start and getting away from the pack.
Yeah, indeed. And it's often where you can make hay early on in these races that can pay dividends much further down the line. 45 minutes will be easily the longest race we've had all day, but there's a 2-hour race to come tomorrow, as the Lotus still making great ground in the hands of Will Stacey. The Elite S2 running in, well, probably better than 10th now, up to at least 9th, Josh.
And he's going 3 seconds quicker than the race leaders now, despite being in traffic. He hasn't got the straight line speed, as you can see here, against Warren Allen's Porsche Cayman, but it's so much lighter is this Lotus Elise. It's very well developed as well, and he just drives, well, perhaps a bit wide, but clean round the outside of Warren Allen there does Will Stacey, the former Lotus Elise trophy champion, a Mazda MX-5 racer who's been racing this car that's continued to be developed over the last couple of years. He doesn't need to turn up until lunchtime, Johnny. He might well have a chance of winning this race.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach to a weekend. I'm not sure necessarily that it's all down to, confidence as such. There were underlying circumstances which meant that he wasn't able to take part in qualifying. there's always an argument, I suppose, ahead of a long race, how much does qualifying actually matter? But I do think still it pays to be out of trouble at the start of a race, particularly how busy things got for the first couple of laps.
The car he's catching now is the Class B leader, Scott Parkin, and Scott was the class winner last time out at Croft as well. So that's another car with a quite a large success penalty. Class C, by the way, is being led by the Porsche 944 of the McHughes, with Jamie McHugh starting that one. So we'll try and keep an eye on the class battles as well as the Class A cars up front, which sees Rob Baker with a 7.3-second lead after 6 laps.
Will Stacey wanted to get up the inside of Scott Parkin's VW Golf into turn 1, but then had to get out of the throttle to avoid contact. And how about this for a fight now between Colin Gillespie in the second of the Seat Cupras and Ryan Parkin in his TT. So the TT, quite a slippery machine compared to the more boxy shape of the Seat Cupra. Scottish sole tyre on the B pillar for Colin Gillespie, and for tomorrow Phil Drybrough. So this is going to be a busy car, and needing to change pilots partway through tomorrow's event, due for a start just after 2:30 in the afternoon. Ryan Parkin's Audi TT has looked very racy from the off, in fact, and could yet be staring at a top 4 finish. Mark Grice is able to head away from Luke Handley on this run down Tom Price straight. The little Ginetta's not given up though, in fairness. Alec Livesley going to be handing that car over later on in the piece to Adam Bessel, and it is still there in 6th position.
For Will Stacey, he's caught the car in 7th place now. Chris Mills is able to take that tighter line, but hasn't got the straight line speed. And that's what makes this really interesting. The Club Enduro race we had at Croft last month, it was a great 6-car battle for about half an hour of the race. Nose to tail change in positions. It's a simple way to do balanced performance, this power to weight ratio, but it's really effective with the various different cars you can see towards the front of the field. But Will Stacey is sort of belying that, really, with the pace he has got in that car. You'd think being a lighter car as well, Johnny, it should look after its tyres a bit better than especially the front-wheel drive cars up front. Agreed,
and he's very decisive when his overtakes as well. I mean, clearly he's in a quicker car than 8th place would show, and he's now got up to 7th because wasted no time at all approaching Christopher Mills' BMW E36 and was able to pick off that touring car into 7th place on the exit of turn 1, Josh.
This is about a third within Class C between Sam McKee in his BMW and Ben McCauley in his Lotus Elise. Ben, who's a paramedic from West Sussex, chasing after Sam McKee, who drives his BMW to all of the events he races at, and he's still there just ahead of McCauley. And that is battle for third within Class C. It's still, though, Jamie McHugh, who leads the class with David Lawrence in his Honda Civic in second. This is the battle for third place through the banking with the BMW ahead of the Lotus Elise. So whether it's the top class or some of the lower powered classes, you still get this great variety between different types of car that can battle away. And we're only 2 minutes away now from the pit window opening, so quickly the first third of the race has gone. And 60 seconds is the minimum stationary time when we come to our pit window, and with, of course, those extra either success penalties or the sequential gearbox penalties that we have. Across the line, I noticed that Ryan Parkin has got himself into 4th position and up ahead of Colin Gillespie. And right behind them is Alex Livesley, but they're all being caught by Will Stacey, so perhaps that'll be a good battle to look at in a few moments' time. But for now, we can enjoy this battle for what is 21st overall, but more importantly, for a class podium position.
So Sam McKee, Ben McCauley, I guess you call that a Mac attack, as they really get stuck in to one another for 3rd position in category C. It's led by a Porsche 944 of the McHughes. And who do we put in to start with? Jamie McHugh to start, Thomas to take over at some point in the next 16 minutes. Running a touch wide there was Parkin in his Audi TT, so that shows you that a bit of pressure. Well, has he got ahead of Colin Gillespie? He certainly was ahead at the start of this lap, and the Audi is now in front to split the 2 Seat Cupras.
Sideways there for Alec Livesley in the Ginetta G20, and now Will Stacey is with him and alongside as they come down towards Siemens. Around the outside goes Stacey. I would imagine the Lotus and the Jeanette have quite similar characteristics, but Stacey's gone around the outside regardless, and Ryan Parkin's fallen behind Gillespie now, and Stacey, is he going to thread the needle between the middle there? It's off the road, it's gone Luke Handley with a failure of some description, do you reckon there, Johnny?
Front right's gone big time. Is that just no, I think the wheels almost tried to part company with the car. I wonder whether there was a bit of debris across the road. There was certainly some smoke just off frame, and certainly the Lotus has run through that. Now, how sharp are those shards that Will Stacey has potentially picked up in his tyres? It all happened in and around where Ryan Parkin was, and Colin Gillespie as well. Got 30 minutes to go still in this race. If they've run over some errant debris there, that could really bite later on in this mini enduro.
In all of that, Stacey got through the middle, didn't he, of those two cars? So he's actually into third overall now. So he's got the same pit stop penalty as the leader, and he's currently 14 seconds behind. It's Stacey in third place, but we have yellow flags for that incident. But it's obviously quite a big failure, whatever it was, in there for Luke Handley in his Volkswagen Golf. So there is Stacey in third. Is Ryan Parkin still fourth? Yes, he is. And we're well into the back marker traffic now for the less powerful cars. They'll be slicing their way through, and particularly through this part of the circuit, Johnny. It's quite tight, so you have to be quite decisive if you're going to get past the slower machines.
Yeah, otherwise just bide your time, but that's the last thing you want if you've got somebody on the same lap, in the same class, desperate to try and get by. The Ginetta tries it on the run into Siemens corner, and can the Ginetta get it stopped in time to turn left in the hands of Alec Livesley? I think so, but they were heading into a yellow flag zone there, so Alec couldn't afford to waste too much time in getting the overtake completed before they were into the caution area. Now just keeping an eye out for that braking area into the banking as to whether there's any more debris around. It was a strange failure. There was a bang out of shot, and then all of a sudden the Golf off on the grass, but the tyres still seem to be inflated, so front right wheel detaching, maybe after a hub or brake failure perhaps. It's a strange one, 15 minutes into a race.
Yeah, absolutely right. Class B we haven't mentioned for a little while. That's Scott Parkin, who leads in his diesel Golf, and he leads that class by about 15 seconds already over Liam Crilly, who's second in the BMW Z4, and James Birch is third within class in his Vauxhall Corsa. In all of that is Josh Lawton, the other driver who started from the pit lane. He's up into 11th overall now in his Honda Civic. But here is Stacey then. He's now only 10 seconds behind the race leader. On that last lap, he was a couple of seconds quicker than Mark Grice, and a much slower lap from Baker, presumably in traffic, which caused that. But Stacey here then dives down the inside of Rory Melia in his Mini Cooper, the ex-Formula V racer, who is out there. And Stacey's put a lap on him now, and he turns his way through. I think the pit stop cycle is beginning as Josh Lawton makes his way down the pit road in his Honda Civic, and that's going to get pretty busy now with the pit window open for a further 12.5 minutes.
There are various configurations of pit lane that can be used here at Anglesey, but I'm assuming it's the quick dive left just before bus stop and in to the pit lane, which runs parallel with the start-finish straight. Josh
Lawton's actually gone into the garage in his Civic, so that's obviously more than just a pit stop, that's a problem. And that is presumably going to be a retirement from the race. A change for second place. Stacey's already through and ahead of Mark Grice as they come up across the line now out of camera shot. And Stacey then from the pit lane just second in about 18 minutes or so. And he is now 9.6 seconds behind the race leader. So it feels, Johnny, like this is going in one direction.
Yeah, 134.9. Compare that to, that's a best lap for Will. 136.9, Rob Baker's best effort so far. BMW parked at a peculiar angle is the car of Christopher Mills.
And that's because you have to park at a 45-degree angle in the pit lane, so there's space for everybody, basically. And hopefully that means it should be done as safely as possible. So that's we'll see a lot of that over the course of the pit stop races this weekend. Here's the race leader. We haven't seen much of Rob Baker during the course of this race, the area motorsport boss who runs so many cars, not just in the 750 Motor Club paddocks, but elsewhere as well. And he shares this car with Cole Swift. They have won the Club Enduro Championship 3 times, and all in the last 3 seasons. But a new car for this year. The car was a little bit of a handful at Croft, but it seems to be working well today on a different layout, but not as well as the Lotus Elise is of Will Stacey, that went so well here last year until it had some car problems. But Stacey there in second position, chasing down the leader, who stays out for another lap. So Rob Baker puts another lap in the books, as we have other pit stoppers such as the Walker family Porsche Boxster. I can see is in there in the pit lane, the Charles Ivy Racing run car that's in the pit lane. So it looks like possibly Dad's got out the car, John, and son Christian Walker is jumping in as a new fastest lap of the race for the race leader Will Stacey, a 1 minute 34.79. He's now only 5 seconds behind the race leader.
So he's halved that gap in a space of 2 or 3 minutes, it feels. Bear in mind we've got 25 minutes of this race still to go. Now he will be able to catch that 5 seconds up within the next probably 5 minutes. Question is, how easy is it going to be to pass Rob Baker? Some work going on the front of that Civic, I noticed, in pit lane, and another car that has come down pit road, the 256 on the Civic Type R, which is David Lawrence, to hand over to Mike Sanford.
Yeah, the Civic that was having some work done on it was Rob Phillips in his slightly older Civic, the EP3 model. Meanwhile, there is Chris Mills, who I think has made his pit stop in his BMW M3, and he's just come out just ahead of the car that runs in third position. That was Mark Grice, who shares with Will Beach, who will be taking that car over shortly. As for the car behind them, that's the Michael Downey Porsche Boxster. That's a Class B car, class that's still being led by Scott Parkin from Liam Crilly and James Birch. Class C still being led by the 944 of the McHughes. And we have got one Class D car out this weekend, which is Morgan Cleesby, and he's out there in his Toyota MR2. But there are the Cragos in their Porsche in the pit lane. That's a 968. Which is another Charles Ivy run car, which we will see also out in the Carmel Porsche Trophy. So they've got plenty of racing over the course of the weekend. And their driver change is ongoing, with Alvaro Crago getting out, and Dan will get into the car, as he has done so already, I think.
That was interesting. On the back of that 968, there was both drivers listed, Crago, and underneath it said JP. I think I should be in that car for a third stint. The problem is they don't need to come in for a second stop, but maybe I could wave enough flags at them and convince them to hand it over to me. It's a dangerous game, but I'm willing to play it. Meantime, that Ginetta with a very large diffuser coming out of the corner. So that's not the G20, is it? Is that G40?
Yeah,
Ginetta?
that's an ex-Rothko car, because
why.
Ollie
Okay.
Goethe used this as a test car. He never raced in Ginetta Juniors, and Chris Webster, who's a good friend of Stuart Hall, who looks after Rothko, convinced them to sell it, which you probably know. Ollie Goethe doesn't sell cars very often, but I think Chris Hyde told him, you don't want a Ginetta G40 in your collection. And he's put a big 2.5 litre Duratec engine in it, and as you say, lots of downforce, which you wouldn't see on a Ginetta Junior, for example. Is this the leaders together? Has Rob Baker been caught by Will Stacey? Are either of them going to dart for the pit lane at this stage, as we are halfway through this 45-minute race, which seems to be flying along pretty quickly, but no Satal for the lead, Johnny?
Well, Will has tried this a couple of times already and succeeded and move into turn one. Can't get it done on Rob Baker, though, through the tricky first left-hander on this Anglesey circuit. Now forcing the Golf to defend into the banking corner. Oh, it catches some grass there. So confident on the downforce that Will Stacey is of this little Elise S2. Is he going to dive up the inside for the race lead? They're absolutely side by side, but the problem for Will is he can't easily see where the Golf is because of the low slung roof line on the little Lotus. Going to have to thread the eye of the needle if he gets it done, and Rob Baker is holding firm, in fairness. The Golf that does have to seem to have the measure on the other hot hatches in this race, so far staying in front, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely right. And these two cars both have the same 10-second penalty for the pit stop, so that shouldn't change things. But Will Stacey is on the inside now as they go into Peel, and Baker just can't do anything about it. Look how much more speed the Elise can take through the corners. So I think Will Stacey's got this car now set up absolutely perfectly. He knows how to drive it, and more importantly, he also knows how to overtake cars that have got more power, which I think is easier said than done. But this Anglesey circuit suits the car down to the ground, obviously, either whether on the coastal circuit as we were last year or on this longer international circuit, doesn't seem to be a problem. So in what did we have? Less than 25 minutes from the pit lane to the front for Stacey. And more pit stops down there, including number 32, Mike Rayner, in his Elise S1. And going out the pits is the early spinner in this race, Alex Richardson, in his Mazda MX-5. But for Will Stacey, he now clocks up lap number 15 as the race leader. Such an impressive stint this has been.
Oh, it's a very civilised way to approach a race meeting. I'm spending the morning sightseeing, basically, in sunny North Wales.
That's Luke Handley, we can see there.
Yeah.
Now trackside and wondering, I guess, if his Volkswagen Golf can be fixed for tomorrow.
Depends how big that failure was and exactly what went wrong. It looks like he's enjoying spectating, though, because clearly two cars or more getting very close to one another right in front of him as Luke flings up the arms there. I didn't see any contact for him before the failure. I'm not saying there wasn't any, but it was a strange incident, and only really he may have the answers. Meanwhile, the Audi TT, a good line through the very fast right-hander at Church, dealing with some traffic. And the track is now very well populated, evenly populated with cars from the TEGIWA Roadsports series, so you're not going to have a moment's rest if you Will Stacey leading the race.
Into the pit lane has come Mark Grice to hand over to Will Beach in this Capture Motorsport run Seat Cupra. Also into the pits is Rory Melia in his Mini Cooper. But for Grice and Beach, their car has a 15-second longer pit stop, so a 75-second stationary after that victory overall at Croft 4 weeks ago. But there is Melia. Good to see him out there, the 33-year-old from Lancashire who's raced in Formula V and 750 Formula in the past, and he drives this 2007 Mini Cooper with a 1.6-litre turbocharged engine, and he's just taking on a bit of refreshments, a drink there during the course of the pit stop, because we've heard, Johnny, in races with open top cars how hot drivers were getting. In these closed cockpit cars, particularly in the pit stops, it must be getting very warm indeed.
When you go out to walk around the paddock, it's quite breezy, but obviously you're not going to get any of that in the closed cars. And if you're tucked in behind a hot race car, all of that hot air is basically being blown in your direction. Also, in a lot of these cars, the engine sits forward of the driver, so heat from that is going to be dissipating into the cockpit. Sure, not particularly pleasant driving conditions. Whoa, well sideways there for the Honda Civic that earlier came into the pits. That's Mike Sanford, I reckon now, who took charge of the 256 Civic Type R from David Lawrence during their stop. We're now only 3 minutes, just less than, away from the pit window closing. You only have to be in the pit lane, though, when 15 minutes remain in the race. I think that's right. You can do your pit stop outside of the time as long as you're in before the cut-off point.
There's, I think, now Adam Bessel at the wheel of the Ginetta G20. Alec Livesey has brought that one in. Bessel has rejoined. I think they may have lost a little bit of time during the course of the pit stops. Once everyone has concluded their pit stop and we've got them back round, we'll have a better idea of the running order. But that driver change has happened, and we've got quite a few still to go in the next lap or so. There's that Honda Civic that we saw in the pit lane, perhaps a touch of damage for Rob Phillips. He continues on his way. Good to see the car, I think, that started a bit late in the race, the Browse BMW M3 GTR that had problems after qualifying. That's the 222 car. Luke Browse started it. Paul Browse may well be at the wheel now, but yeah, that car's only done 3 laps actually, so into the race a bit late, but a good test session run now for that car before tomorrow's Club Enduro race.
Yeah, I wonder, that was slightly confusing me when the BMW, the white one, came in at a 45-degree angle, and that was the point where the Treble 2 started its race. Right, we're very nearly at the end of the pit window. Let's get an update from the pits with Andy McEwen.
So I think we're here from Andy in just a moment's time. He's just grabbing a driver out of one of the garages, and we'll be able to catch up. I think Will Stacey has brought the lead in Lotus Elise into the pit lane. So that means Rob Baker has gone around for another lap, which if that is... No, he's in, isn't he? So his pit lane box is further along than the start-finish line, where I think Will Stacey's is before the finish line, just to confuse matters.
OK, so they're both in, but one's triggered the beam and the other one hasn't. So it is basically a straight race on pit road. I did think if Will Stacey was staying out, that would be nip and tuck to be able to get in before. There's still a Lotus out on track.
Yeah, so perhaps he did come in a lap before, so I was right first time.
Okay.
But who's going to lead? Because Cole Swift is exiting the pit lane pretty much side by side with the Lotus Elise, Johnny.
Yeah, and it's very close indeed. Looking out of the window at the moment, as they disappear briefly from my sight, the Lotus is marginally ahead, but brand new driver into the Golf, just getting used to current road conditions, and Carl Swift then staying with the Elise S2 for the time being. I think there's only going to be one winner here ultimately, though, as long as the Lotus reliability is pretty good. But that Golf, like a rocket, heading into rocket, funnily enough, but I don't think he's going to be able to hold back our still race leader, that metallic blue Lotus. That update that I promised you from Andy, here it is now.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Down in the pit lane where things are getting a little bit quieter now as we approach the end of the pit window. Catching up now with Alex Livesley, who's in one of the more interesting cars on the grid, the Ginetta G20. Not a standard G20, must be said. Can you talk us through a bit of the history of the car and what's been changed on it?
It started off as a Ginetta Junior, the 1.4 litre engine. Now 2 litre, sequential gearbox, lots of aero, never had the standard. So, yeah, it's getting there. It's our second event out. And, yeah, it's showing quite good at the moment. I think we've got the opposite problem to the TCRs. Our tyres take a while to come in, and the TCRs are quick straight away.
It should be the perfect car, really, though, for this circuit, because it's lightweight, but it's got the downforce and nippy enough down the straights too.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So it's yeah. Hopefully Adam can bring it home in a fairly good position.
Yeah, how are things looking for you out there then? Were you satisfied with your stint?
Yeah, quite satisfied. So we lost a few places at the start with cold tyres. Just took a while for them to come back in, really. So yeah, I'm quite happy now.
You've had a bit of time to cool off now as well. The first thing you said to me when you got out of the car is it's hot out there.
It is hot. It is really hot. We put some cooling in the car, but it's still hot. Tomorrow with the 2-hour race, it's going to be really hot.
So, yeah, that's a good point. This is good training for that in a way, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Rather than testing, we thought we'd just enter this event and see how we go. There's nothing more than competition, is there, to bring out the best in us.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having a chat, Alex. Best of luck for the rest of the race.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Good to hear there from Alex Livesley, who's handed over that Ginetta G20 to Adam Bessel. I think that car may have lost a little bit of time in the pit stop. Probably not the easiest car to get in and out of compared to some of the touring cars that have a little bit more space. We're just looking here at car number 70, which is the BMW 330 of John Maddock-Jones, who is battling away there with the Craigo 968, was that, I think?
Yeah, 968 Club Sport, to be entirely accurate, so 135 rather than 35 that it says on its doors, but beautifully turned out machine. Again, all sorts of different shapes and sizes, including that Mini on the high side, which is the 114 car of 114 of George Whitehouse, currently 27th position.
The leader slowing, Johnny. We said this car hasn't had 100% reliability, and Will Stacey is parking the car basically opposite us. You can see that on the camera now as he crossed the line. He loses the lead to Cole Swift. But more importantly, Johnny, this car that's had a few issues has seemingly got another.
I did mention that word reliability and sort of bit my tongue as soon as I'd said it, because that may well be a perfect example of commentator's curse. We knew the difficulties that prevented Will Stacey from taking part in qualifying this morning, and a great spot from you, Josh, to see it crawling out of the bus stop corner, the final left-hander on this circuit. And unfortunately, well, I suppose the benefit of stopping there is very short walk back to the paddock, but it is all change at the sharp end.
Safety car lights are on standby at this stage, because the problem is Will Stacey can't jump over the pit wall, because it's absolutely a huge pit wall, isn't it? So safety car boards are already being shown. So I'm afraid what had been a pretty good 35 minutes or so of racing to begin things. Now we are going to get a safety car right towards the end. The order was seeing Cole Swift leading by about 12 seconds, and that's going to disappear. Ryan Parkin's Audi TT is going to end up in second position. Will Beach is there in third in his Cupra. A similar car of Colin Gillespie is fourth. Chris Mills has made his way up into what will be fifth position in the BMW M3. Then the Class B leader is there in sixth position, Scott Parkin in his TDI Golf. Warren Allen is there in seventh. Eighth is Robert Andrade. Ninth is the Class B second place car of Liam Crilly. Then third within Class B and 10th overall will be James Birch. Within Class C, it's now Ben McCauley and his Lotus Elite. Remember, we were talking about him about fourth position in that first part of the race, but he's taken the lead in Class C and got himself up ahead of early leader, the McHugh Porsche 944, now at the wheel of Tom. And then in third position within Class C is Sam McKee in his BMW 330. But this safety car period will tighten up some of those battles potentially. But what it also is going to mean is there's going to be very little of the race to go once this safety car period is concluded.
There's going to be a temptation here to maybe take on an overtake that you wouldn't have even considered at the start of the race when the cars were as close as this. But when you know there's going to be less than 10 minutes to go when we do restart, what will be in Ryan Parkin's mind perhaps, what will be in Colin Gillespie's mind, because he's had a quick car all race long. There are also going to be bits of traffic kind of in the wrong places, and to my knowledge there won't be any sort of reordering or wave bars or anything like that, so it's not going to bunch up the cars that are on the lead lap. They will just be left where they are. So at least if you are Carl Swift, you've got cars immediately behind you, not on your lap.
Yeah, quite a lot actually, isn't there, between he and Ryan Parkin. But for Ryan Parkin, he has the Seat of Mark Grease and Will Beach now, isn't it, immediately behind him. One car you may have noticed I didn't mention in the top 10 was that Ginetta G20. Adam Bethel has dropped all the way down to 15th position, so that really was a much longer pit stop that Alec Livesley didn't really make reference to in that interview, did he, that perhaps took longer than potentially what it should have done, but that car is well out of contention. But there is the race leader. On the road at Croft, that car won Roadsports, the Cole Swift and Rob Baker Golf, but was penalised for exceeding track limits. That's hopefully not going to be a problem for them today. And for Cole Swift, they lead the way then. With just under 9 minutes to go on the clock, the rescue team are heading towards Will Stacey. And hopefully it won't take too long to get that car onto the back of the flatbed. But for Will Stacey, his concern here will be what the problem with the car is and whether that can be fixed for tomorrow's Club Enduro race, because he was the winner at Croft 4 weeks ago. And that is a problem that needs to be sorted. Interestingly, he didn't come into the pit lane. So was that problem immediate as he turned into the last corner, didn't have time to get into the pit lane, and he stopped it very quickly. So I wonder, because tomorrow is the main day for him, whether he thought, OK, let's turn the car off, make sure we don't do any more damage. I didn't see any smoke or anything like that, which we have seen in the past in that car. But we shall see. Perhaps Andy might be able to, although he'll probably be heading towards Parc Ferme shortly with not much longer of the race to go, but maybe he'll see Will Stacey and the team and get some news.
Do we know the nature of the problem that kept him from qualifying this morning?
I think it was because he wasn't here. I think that is genuine.
It's not a car, it wasn't a car issue as such then.
From what I understand, he was arriving at lunchtime and using this a bit of a test, like we heard from Alec earlier on.
Bit of sightseeing of North Wales, as I was suggesting. Probably not, but I mean, it just shows that car is good enough to outpace the majority of the others in this field. How long was the race that he won at Croft?
That was 2 hours, but for the second half of the race, the temperature was on red and the car just didn't break down.
Okay.
Whereas on like this race, I suspect if the temperature went onto that bit, he would just turn it off, like potentially what's happened here.
Yes.
But when the Club Enduro race, where he's trying to win it, he just carries on and hopes it doesn't blow up.
Yeah.
Basically, I think they told me they were on their fourth engine of the season already, and this is only the second meeting. So they've had, I think, a vast array of problems with that car. It's absolutely rapid. I think it's the quickest car, with no question, whatever track we're at nowadays. But it's whether it'll last a distance.
It is a tad fragile by the sounds of things, and you can see right there, folks, how costly this motorsport lark can be at times when you're chewing through engines, 4 of them, and we're not even into June yet. I fancy William will know roughly what the issue is. Obviously, he was keeping an eye on the dials, the dash, for any indication of something that might be about to go wrong. But as you say, he decided to go straight by pit road not turn left and instead stay on the track. So maybe it did just suddenly hit, and he was already beyond the point of no return in terms of going onto another lap, and he was not even going to get to turn 1, let alone do another 2 and a bit miles. So it could be a long night for those associated with the former race leading Lotus Elise S2. We wish everyone to do with that car well in terms of its quick repair, because we definitely want to see it in the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship race tomorrow, 2:30 in the afternoon. That's due to start, so they do at least have tomorrow morning as well if needed, but there'll be a qualifying session ahead of that.
Yeah, at 9 o'clock.
At 9 o'clock, okay. Scratch that 2:30 deadline.
Well, perhaps that is what as long as they get it out, because we've seen he can overtake with pretty much ease.
And he'll have 2 hours to do it there, so he'll probably lap the field if the car keeps going.
And the other question is what the weather's going to do. We mentioned that earlier. The Elise doesn't like the rain as the front-wheel drive cars do. So that, of course, will be another question. The car's back in the paddock, though, so I'm sure we'll be able to go green flag racing at the end of this lap, probably with enough time for 3 laps of racing, I would think. And Cole Swift, I'm sure, will be pushing on immediately with all those cars behind, and then it'll be the battles for second position to look out for, as well as the class battles, of course. So just a reminder, in Class B, it's Scott Parkin who leads over Liam Crilly and James Birch. In Class C, it's Ben McCauley who leads from Tom McHugh and Sam McKee. That's the top 3 within that class. And the Class D car, Morgan Cleesby, I think, still running. The top 10 overall still on the lead lap as the safety car pulls in and Cole Swift accelerates them through the last corner, and here see a green flag now as he goes on to lap number 23 of the race for second position. Ryan Parkin's got to be careful not to pass before the line, but that means he's going to be under pressure, Johnny.
Massively so, and this time from the beach-driven Seat Cupra. So in their pit stop, Mark Grice, who had a great opening stint, handing over to teammate Will Beach, who has a little look at the inside of Ryan Parkin's Audi TT. Good drive off the corner, though, from the TCR car, and they're going to be level pegging as they reach Church. What's the more gentlemanly thing to do here if you're Mark Beach? Well, it's to allow the Audi to at least turn in and keep its place, but really quick out of the traps there. There was also a car going wide coming out of turn 1, which was the number 70 BMW, I reckon. Did escape that moment.
For Beach, he had a big slide as he went through Church Corner trying to get to the inside of Ryan Parkin. But as you say, Johnny, it didn't come off. 7.5 seconds already dropped behind the leader. So for Cole Swift, it should be pretty smooth from here. At least they'll be hoping for that. But for second place, still in traffic, Ryan Parkin coming under further and further pressure from Will Beach. They've got to lap the Class C leading, one of the Class C cars, I should say, through the corner there, which is the Craigo 968. It's the other sort of front-engine Porsche that's the front of Class C. But that battle of second place, Beach tries to squeeze up alongside Ryan Parkin, can't do it. Now they've got the M3 GTR that came into the race late to get through. The Luke and Paul Browse, father and son machine, I think, just stepped right to allow those 2 faster cars to come through. Not far behind them is solo-driven Seat Cupra of Colin Gillespie there in 4th position.
Yeah, Colin's getting closer and closer. He was 4th for a lot of his opening stint as well, so a sense of déjà vu for the Scot.
The Class C leaders just coming through the final corner, Johnny. Ben McCauley narrowly ahead of Sam McKee, who gets up alongside him. So for the Class C lead, going into the first corner, Sam McKee round the outside, you can see it on your screen now, swoops into the lead of the class. So that was a really good move. And now Alex Richardson up into 3rd in that class. So the McHugh Porsche 944 that led early on starting to drop away. But there you can see Sam McKee up into the class lead now, but very much narrowly over Ben McCauley.
Driven really well, both of these actually. Firm but fair racing. They were dicing for 3rd position in Class C earlier on in the opening stint and has steadily worked their way to the sharp end, helped out, I'm sure, by good work in the pits and slightly quicker pit stops, as well as the BMW M4 will get by them to put another lap for Liam Crilly. He remains on the lead lap. What about Will Beach, Colin Gillespie, and either of those now ahead of Ryan Parkin, because that's really the dice to keep our eye out for in the remaining 90 seconds.
Alex Richardson's MX-5's joining in on this Class C lead battle
So
now,
is,
Johnny.
yes.
So, and he's going up the inside of McCauley, but there's not quite room there. So you've got 3 cars within Class C. So great to see a good number of cars within the class this weekend, and a great battle in these final moments for the race leader. Cole Swift overall is going to start his final lap now with less than a lap time left on the clock. And for second position, it's still Ryan Parkin ahead. So they're equally going on to their final lap of the race as we watch the Class C leaders work their way. They're being lapped by cars. They're trying to lap cars as well. So it's all very busy down at the hairpin there as they're shortly going to start their final lap. And has Macaulay got a problem there? Was the Lotus Elise slowing? And is that going to give Alex Richardson a chance to grab second? It's pretty much 4 abreast, but yeah, Macaulay's slowing, so the Lotus Elise that was leading the class is for the pit lane as he leaves the rest of them to dice their way through the final corner. None of this a worry for the race leader overall. Cole Swift got a clear track, but behind it's absolutely bedlam.
Yeah, it's not been a great race for Lotus either so far, with 2 of them now hitting issues, it seems. The Ginetta G20 that was well and truly in the fight in the opening stages is still going strongly in the hands of Adam Bessel. Just, in fact, set its best lap of the race so far. Colin Gillespie tucked in behind, but Colin's on the lead lap and looking for a way by the Ginetta of Bessel. And here's your second and third place runners. Only half a second between them at the start of this lap. It's condensed yet further since then, and they're about 2/3 of the way around the final lap now. Ryan Parkin sticking the elbows out, trying to keep his TT as wide as possible to keep Will Beach behind.
Great battling all the way through this 45-minute race, and Ryan Parkin hanging on for now. They're in second place. You can see a bit of a puff of diesel smoke out the back, but none of this is an issue for Cole Swift. He and Rob Baker won on the road at Croft. This time they look like they're going to take the win overall on the result sheets as well. And for second place, there's contact as they come out the final corner, as Will Beach, I think, might have got into Ryan Parkin there. They say these drivers are just doing this race as a test session for tomorrow's Club Enduro race, but some of those battles would suggest perhaps not. But for second place across the line, Ryan Parkin held on. His twin brother Scott Parkin comes across the line now to win Class B. And what about for Class C? Because we saw those battles going on. Can Sam McKee hang on as he makes his way now down into the final corner with Alex Richardson right behind, and then the Honda Civic getting back involved in that right at the end was Mike Sanford. So first, second and third in Class C, separated by very little more than a second there. So great racing within that category, but for Rob Baker and Cole Swift, that's the perfect start to the weekend. They may have not set the fastest lap of the race, but the Gulf just continued on, and it shows that Area Motorsport with that car have got a reliable car. I guess there'd be that question mark over the teammate car of Luke Handley that had its failure earlier in the race, so they'll be wanting to make sure they understand what the problem was there before tomorrow. But otherwise, a very good race for Rob Baker and Cole Swift. So the whole field now, I think, have taken the checkered flag. So in a few moments' time, we'll be able to take a look at the results then of that Roadsports Series race, which I reckon got only 3 or 4 retirements. So we saw a few cars with issues, but the majority were okay. And we can take a look at the results then of round 2 of the TEGIWA Roadsports Series here on the Anglesey the Anglesey International Circuit even. And it was car number 1 then, the winners, Rob Baker and Cole Swift by 8 seconds over Ryan Parkin, who finished second. Third was Mark Grice and Will Beach. Fourth was Colin Gillespie, and fifth, Chris Mills. Winning Class B in 6th place, Scott Parkin doubles up on his victory from Croft, with Warren Allen in 7th. 8th and second within class was Liam Crilly. In 9th position was Robert Andrade, and completing the top 10 and third within Class B, the Vauxhall Corsa, James Birch. In 11th position after a slower pit stop was Alex Livesey and Adam Bessel. In 12th was Matthew Tidmarsh and Chris Webster. Third was father and son John and Chris Walker. Christian Walker, and then 14th was Sammy Bowler. In 15th, winning Class C, was Sam McKee, ahead of Alex Richardson, a gap of just 0.4 of a second at the flag, with David Lawrence and Mike Sanford in 17th and third in class. 18th was Rory Melia, 19th for Michael Downey, and Nick Varley completed the top 20. The McHughes dropped back in the second half. They finished 21st, ahead of Ben McCauley, who managed to take the flag after those issues. George Whitehouse, Mark Enott, John Maddock-Jones, the Craigos, and Morgan Cleesby completed the top 27, and Morgan Cleesby got to the flag as the Class D winner. Then a few cars with problems were Rob Phillips, Mike Rayner, Will Stacey, Josh Lawton, and Luke Handley, who was the first retirement of the race. So we've seen the Roadsports series race now here at Anglesey. We'll see the club enduro race tomorrow for some of these competitors, but for Roadsports, their next round will be on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. So that's an exciting first for the series. So I'm not sure if it's full, it probably is, but if not, try and get your entry in if you haven't already. Then Snetterton, Brands Hatch Indian, Donington Park are the remaining races of the season as well. But for Andy McEwen, he's catching up with our class winners down in Parc Fermé.
Well, fantastic TEGIWA Roadsports Series race here at Anglesey. 4 very happy class winners pulling in somewhere amongst the sea of cars behind me. Now, I did just see Carl Swift. He's over here. This is typically see drivers, they win a race, and the first thing I want to do is chat to each other. Carl, hello again, long time no see. Right. Back to winning ways, I see.
Yeah, unexpected that really. We've struggled with pace in testing yesterday and probably a heavy right foot, but I managed to dial that back in today and bring it home, and Rob had an amazing first stint. And he put in a blistering lap in quali as well, so much better than expected.
You must have popped out of the pit lane there in the lead, thinking you've got this one made, and then that pesky safety car came out.
Yeah, I did think that, but then saw there was 5 Class B and C cars between, so held the train right back and went early. So I got a bit of a jump before they could pass them on the start-finish line. Bit cruel, but racing's racing. Worked
out well for you in the end, didn't it, I suppose? Difficult to keep the tyres alive there in this sort of heat?
Yeah, this track is a monster for tyres, so they've got like 2-3 good laps in them, and then they're just driving around on chewing gum.
Sounds fun. Yeah. Well done, and pass my congratulations on to Rob as well. When you see him, Carl Swift and Rob Baker overall winners. Scott Parkin was here a second ago. There he is, Scott Parkin, our winner in Class B. Congratulations. You were right up there as well towards the very pointy end of the grid too. You must have felt really competitive there.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing we've struggled with, but I think everybody else has, is just tyre temperatures. You could just feel the tyres going off. You know, you get one good lap, you'd have to do 5 laps to cool down. So yeah, I think it was just a case of managing the pace, not trying to set qualifying laps every lap, which is what I like to do normally in the race. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that these tyres lasted the full 45 minutes. I think it would have been touch and go if I'd have pushed too hard. So yeah, but I'd lost radio comms as well, so I've no idea if I'd won or anything, but I had a pretty good feeling that all the laps were coming together. So yeah, all happy.
How does that work during the pit window then? Because obviously you were staying in the car, but you still had to come in and serve the mandatory stop. But the team, are they using pit boards to tell you when to come in?
Yeah, so they held a pit board out. Obviously there's a pit board saying when the pit window's open, but the optimal time is to come in when there's a safety car, so you want to leave it as late as possible. The issue is the only time we know when the pit window's closed is when the pit window close board is open. So yeah, so the guys held out the board, I came in the next lap, and then the pit window closed a lap later, so I think it worked out pretty well really. And then the safety car came after the pit window, so yeah, nobody really gained an advantage under a safety car this time, which is good.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, Scott. A victory in Class B. Now, Sam McKee is down here, the number 36 car. Sam, our victor in Class C. Sam,
hi, how
you look well and truly worn out after that, mate.
It was work, I won't lie. No walk in the park. Last lap, in fact, really needed to seal it. It's fantastic. I haven't won a race in this car for 3 years. You know, I drive it to and from the circuit. Been racing it 7 years. Ticked over 212,000 miles on the way here. So to be able to go out and do the business like that is just, I'm so proud. I've just dried up from the cool down lap. I won't lie to you. I was crying in the helmet. I can't believe it.
I love that though.
Fantastic.
What a way to do it as well in such a nail-biting finish. I mean, at what point did you feel like it was going to happen?
No nails left. Honestly, the last second. It wasn't until the last lap that I realised, hang on a moment, actually, he's far enough away that I've got half a chance here, because he was a second up the road in qualifying. But it's a long race, you know, you've got to bang it in lap after lap, and he fell off quite early. And I thought, okay, if I could keep it together, maybe there's a chance, but stunned. And what a place to do it, huh? I actually got to look at Snowdonia on the last lap. I allowed myself a quick glance to think, oh, stunning. Over the moon.
Fantastic. Well done, Sam McKee. A very excited victory in Class C. I don't know where Morgan Cleesby, our Class D winner, has gone in the Toyota MR2, trying to look towards the back end of the grid. I did hear on the Marshall's radio there were 1 or 2 cars that might not have made it back. I think he is down here, actually, if we've got time to just have a quick wander down then, because the Class D cars, they don't necessarily get the headlines being right at the front of the field, but they had an entertaining battle in their own right, and it was Morgan who came out on top. And thank you very much to James Wynne Morgan Stanley for hunting down our Class D winner then. Morgan, congratulations. Race victory, that's all well and good, but I'll tell you what, I bet this is a fun car to drive around Anglesey on a sunny day.
It is absolutely marvellous. The handling is so neutral, and you can just play with what it's doing, just with your inputs and things, and got some nice bits of drifts going on in the fast corners. I was getting a bit of tail out up the hill there, and I got the idea that people that were spectating there were quite enjoying that. Yeah, absolutely amazing. This is my first race.
Oh wow!
And I won the class.
Wow!
There was no one else in the class, but don't tell anyone.